2024 is nearly in the books, and with the end of the year headed our way, we're taking a look back at some of the most intense trials over the past calendar year and the emotions that go along with them. We'll start with the case of Jamie Komorowski, the 27-year-old now convicted of killing a South Carolina bride on her wedding day. It happened on April 28, 2023, when Komorowski drunkenly crashed into a golf cart carrying newlyweds Samantha Miller and Eric Hutchinson. The couple was married that very day, just hours before the crash. Hutchinson was left with a brain injury and broken bones, while Miller was killed. Komorowski was charged with reckless homicide and 3 counts of felony DUI and pleaded guilty to the charges. At her sentencing hearing, Hutchinson gave an emotional victim impact speech.
What do you say when your world's shattered? Physically, I'm in pain every day. My face hurts, my back hurts, my feet hurt. It's a struggle to get through every day. I see more doctors than I can count. I see more therapists. More psychiatrists, done more procedures than I ever care to do. And I still feel I'm at the same point as when I found out that day. My world will be ever changed what happened that night. I think about that night every single day. In the last moments I had with Sam on the golf cart. She told me she didn't want the night to end. And I kissed her on the forehead. And then the next thing I remember is waking up in the hospital. I see my mom's face, still wearing the wedding dress from the night before. And I knew instantly. And so I asked where's Sam. I knew she wasn't there. I wish more than anything gives me instead of Sam. I wish I died that night, so she didn't have to go alone. I wish I saw you coming, and I jumped off the golf cart so you would only run me over. And pray to God that you'd miss that golf cart. We did not get hit. We got ran through at 65 miles per hour. There's no way any 4 of us, any 3 of us should be alive. All 4 of us should have died that night. And I'd give anything just for 1 second to hold her again. She wanted children, and she talked me into having 2. She wanted them so bad that she wanted to start having kids, or trying to have kids before the wedding. But I was nervous that she wouldn't be able to fit into her wedding dress. So we decided to wait till after the wedding to start a family. I don't have joy, I don't have passion, I don't have drive. I feel like I'm stuck in hell. I wish every day that I died that night. Do you know what it's like to vow to protect your wife and to do anything for her, and then to lose her hours after that? Something nobody should have to go through.
After all this, Jamie Komorowski was sentenced to 25 years in prison for Samantha Miller's death. Heading south now to Florida for the heartbreaking case of 10-month-old Araya Page, who died after her babysitter left her in a hot car. Back in November, 47-year-old Rhonda Jewell was convicted on charges of third-degree felony murder and leaving a child unattended or unsupervised in a motor vehicle causing great bodily injury. She was found not guilty on the charge of aggravated manslaughter. During Jewell's trial, baby Araya's mom took the stand, giving harrowing testimony.
Did you and Justice have any children?
Yes.
How many children did you have?
1.
Was this child a boy or a girl?
Girl.
And what was her name?
Mariah Page.
Was this you and Justice's first child?
Yes.
And what was Araya's date of birth?
September 4th, 2022.
So Araya was under the age of, obviously, 6 years of age.
Correct.
So how old would she have been on July 19th of 2023, approximately?
10 months.
10 months old. Araya being 10 months old, can you just describe what she was like, what she was capable of doing at that age?
I'm so sorry. She was a very bubbly little girl. She would laugh. She was never a bad baby. She was constantly so happy, but she would stare through you like no other person. She didn't care who you were. Even me, she'd look at me and make me laugh at those little goofy looks. At that point, she was saying Dada. She was just getting to the point where she was able to pull up on stuff, like she was about to start walking. She was just so giggly and happy, so bubbly, such an outgoing baby. You would just have to see her and you would just fall in love. She kind of shoved me out the way and just started running out the door.
Was she saying anything as she was running out the door?
Screaming my name.
Do you know where she was running to?
Not until she arrived where she was running to.
And where did she eventually arrive?
The back passenger door of her Tahoe.
Would that be her vehicle?
Yes.
Where was her vehicle parked?
On the side of the driveway in the rocks.
So it was outside?
Yes.
Wasn't in the garage or anything like that?
No.
Did you follow her to her car?
And when I realized where she was going, yes.
When you arrived at the defendant's car, what did you see?
Araya, not breathing.
Where was Araya?
In her car seat still.
Was she still strapped in?
Yes.
Exactly where you had put her?
Yes.
You said she was not breathing.
No.
How did you know that?
Her lips were blue.
What did you do next?
I told her to call 911.
And was Araya taken out of the car?
Yes.
Was her baby bag with all the items you had packed still in the car as well?
Yes.
Where was Araya put?
I told her to go put her on the golf cart inside the garage.
Inside the garage.
I told her to go take her inside, and she had went to take her on the garage, in the garage on the golf cart.
Did you call 911?
Yes.
After you called 911, who else did you call?
My mother-in-law,
And who was your mother-in-law?
Pamela Page.
Why did you call Pamela Page?
I didn't know how to do CPR.
And did you think Pamela Page would be able to do or instruct you on how to do CPR?
Yes, because she's a nurse.
She's a nurse. Okay. Do you remember what you told Pamela Page when you called her?
I told her to get here now.
Did you tell her anything about Araya?
I said Araya's dead. Or Araya's not breathing.
Your Honor, how may I approach the witness, please?
You may.
We're going to show you State's Exhibit B and State's Exhibit C. Just look at them yourself. Judge, can you approach?
Yes, you may approve.
State's Exhibit B. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is that photo?
Stacy's house.
Is that the house you went to on July 19th?
Yes.
To pick up Araya?
Yes.
Okay. And then State's Exhibit C, identification, obviously you recognize that as well.
Yes. I drew that.
And what is that? Who is that photo?
Araya.
Your Honor, I'd like to put these into evidence if I may.
I'm going to go ahead and receive them subject to the objections raised by the defendants.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to be able to publish them to the jury.
You may. Those will be State's Exhibits 2 and 3.
We also heard emotional testimony from Rhonda Jewell herself, who said Araya's death was a tragic mistake.
She opened up the door, and I seen her, and I was still in shock while she was there. And so she had money in her hand and her keys. And that's when I realized I didn't get the baby in the car. I forgot the baby in the car. And so I pushed her out the way. And I was screaming, "Oh my God, Brooke, oh my God, oh my God, Brooke." And I could hear her saying, what? And I ran to the car. And I opened up the door, and she was still there. Araya was still in the back seat.
What happened after you opened the door, Rhonda?
I opened up the back door, and she was left. I accidentally left her in the car. I was like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, Brooke, oh my God, Brooke." And she said, "Call 911. And so I ran back inside. I couldn't find my phone. And when I found it, I have a code to get in. And I couldn't remember my code to get in my phone. I got the baby out of the car seat.
What did you do with Araya after you got her out of the car seat?
I held her, and I prayed God was taking me instead. I begged God to give her breath and just take me instead.
Just this month, Jewell was sentenced to 17 years in prison for baby Araya's death. Moving on to Georgia now, where Melody Walker Ferris is convicted in the murder of her husband, Gary Wayne Ferris. Ferris was convicted on all charges, including malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, concealing the death of another, and making a false statement. Back in 2018, Georgia sheriff's deputies found blood and a spent bullet in the Ferris home. Outside, they found Gary's charred remains in a burn pit with a bullet lodged in his rib cage. Testimony got emotional when Ferris's daughter, Amanda Bruce, took the stand.
What was your dad like?
He was great.
Take your time. I feel like we've been in this trial for a while.
He was a very smart man. I'm sorry. There was no doubt in my mind he loved all of us. He made that known, and he was very sarcastic.
Lawyers are notorious for that.
He had the lawyer personality for sure, but I mean, he was the dad that you walk down the stairs and he'd whistle and go, "You're a movie star." Or when Emily had her baby, he texted me a picture of me holding Olivia, and he goes, "You're natural." Like, he was just so loving, and I can still.
Take your time.
He was just such a big man, and he'd come and he'd just wrap his arms around you. But then in this sense, he'd turn around and fart on you, and you'd just be like, he was sweet, and he was witty. He could say things that cut you to the bone. He definitely demanded respect in that aspect, I guess you would say. I was always fearful of him in the sense that I wanted to respect him and I wanted him to be proud of me. So I'm searching everywhere, and I go walk that property line and I go over the dam that's by the left of the pond if you're standing on that side. And I walked up to the barn, probably walked either through the barn or around the barn. I don't really remember.
Now I ask you this, do you ever remember around this time Scott saying anything about the placement of the tractor? Did he bring that up? Did you hear that?
No.
Okay. All right, go ahead. Where you walked?
Walked up there, and I was calling out his name, trying to find him. I was getting desperate at this point and hoping I would find him. And I just had this gut feeling that something was wrong. And I had turned and walked down the driveway, and I was standing right as the driveway dips, and Scott calls me.
On your phone?
On my phone. And I'm looking over the pond and kind of just standing there at the fence, and he goes, Amanda, like something to the tune of like, Daddy's in this burn pile. Like, I know what I've seen. I've been in Iraq. I know what burned bodies looked like. And I'm just sitting there on the phone going, what are you talking about? And he was like, there's something in this burn pile. And I was like, what are you talking about? And pure just denial, I guess. And either he hung up the phone or I hung up, but I immediately called Chad and I said, you need to get here right now.
We saw the trial of another Georgia woman this same year, too, when Leilani Simon was convicted in the murder of her 20-month-old son, Quentin Simon. His death dates back to October 5th, 2022, when Leilani called 911 to report her son missing. She told authorities he was last seen in a playpen inside of their home before he vanished. For 2 weeks, investigators searched for Quentin, later finding his human remains in a landfill. A Chad County police officer was notably upset describing the scene.
We continue to search.
And did you yourself find any more items of note?
I don't recall, because really any items that we found that we thought were potentially bones, we would put in the buckets for them to collect and to get tested. So whether or not specifically I found any other items that were tested,
it's a difficult thing for you to answer, right? Let me ask you this. After having been out there for weeks, going through line after line, tell me what it felt like to see that little piece of Quentin's skull and pick it up and realize what it was.
It was heartbreaking.
Was it rewarding also? I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Think.
I don't have any questions, Judge.
Leilani Simon was ultimately convicted of malice murder and 18 other charges. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Switching now to a teenage defendant, that's 15-year-old Carly Gregg, who was convicted in the murder of her own mother, Ashley Smiley. Prosecutors say Carly went rogue when her mom and stepdad found out about her secret life that included vaping, cheating at school, and even self-harm. Carly shot her mother in their Mississippi home and later texted a friend, quote, "Have you seen a dead body?" She also texted her stepdad from her mom's phone pretending to be her mom. So she asked when her stepdad was coming home, and then when he did, Carly shot him in the shoulder. He overpowered her, though, and the teen was arrested. She was noticeably distraught this year, too, when a resounding verdict was handed down.
Has the jury been able to reach a verdict in any of these counts? Yes, sir. All right, if you would, please hand the paper to the bailiff. Ms. Gregg, please rise and come to the podium, along with your attorneys. All right, the verdicts appear to be in proper form. Verdict of the jury is count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Please be seated, Ms. Gregg. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, is custom for the court to poll the jury. I have to do it each time. And for each count, I'm not being rude. The quickest way for me to get through this is to simply point at you and you answer out loud. As to count 1, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? You got to answer out loud, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Yes.
On the back row, sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? That verdict is proper and unanimous. As to count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Ma'am, is that your verdict?
Yes.
On the back row, sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? As to count 3, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict?
Yes,
sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
On the back row, sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? All right. All 3 verdicts appear to be unanimous. The court will enroll the verdict. All right.
Carly was ultimately sentenced to life in prison without parole. She's since appealed that sentence. Back to Florida now, where Lori Lee Shaver is found guilty in the murder of her husband, whose body she buried under a fire pit. Back in 2018, friends called the Lake County Sheriff's Office asking for a wellness check on 36-year-old Michael Douglas Shaver, who apparently hadn't been seen since November of 2015. When police met with Lori, she told them her husband had abandoned the family back in 2015. But when they came back with a search warrant, cadaver dogs found Michael's body in the yard. Lori was charged in his murder and even took the stand in her own defense. She got emotional when describing her relationship with Michael.
Ms. Filmer, would you state your name for the record, please?
Lori Filmer, previously known as Lori Shaver.
A big day in your life, isn't it? Big week. Been several years, hasn't it, Ms. Filmer? Tell me when you're ready, okay? Would you tell the jury who you are and how you met Michael Shaver?
I met Michael, we started dating in 7th grade. We lived in a very small town in Lawrence, New York. Our school was K through 12, 500 kids. Our graduating class was like 14, 18 kids. We went to kindergarten together. I met Michael in tech class, when they actually did tech class, in 7th grade.
We reached a period of time where y'all elected to get married, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember when that was?
May of 2016.
Okay. And at some point in time, y'all ended up migrating to the state of Florida.
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember approximately when that was?
I graduated in 2001. Went to college. So Mike was a dropout. He got his GED. He wanted to become a pilot. Didn't have much funding for that. My parents paid for it. I went to school for business administration and focus in health service administration. So I was very socially awkward. Wasn't a popular kid in school.
Okay.
My brother one of my oldest brothers, I'm the youngest of 5. One of my brothers got meningitis at 7 weeks. And he was severely mentally retarded. He got picked on a lot. So growing up in a small town, that was not like acceptable way back then. And I spent all my time in the handicapped classroom. And that was like not popular. I was an outcast. He used to get beat up on the bus, and I would stick up for him. I met Mike had gone to school with him, but in 7th grade, in tech class, we became friends. He was an awkward kid as well, because he was kind of like a troublemaker at that time. And I didn't have anybody, he didn't have anybody. We kind of clung together at that point.
Okay. So there's some period of time went by, y'all got married, ended up down here, correct?
Yes.
Mike wanted to be a pilot, couldn't do that, or what?
No, he did. Yep.
Okay. Did he?
Eventually did.
Okay. Did he fly commercial, or was it a hobby?
Nope. He, my parents helped him get his personal private pilot's license. He wanted to go on and get his professional pilot license. My parents told him that if he was going to date me, he was going to get his GED, and they would help him. He looked to his family to get assistance with that. He was denied. So it took some time. It took a lot of time, but eventually he made his way. He started flying for Pan Am Flight Academy, which is the lower division of U.S. Airways out of New York City.
Okay.
Yep, he was doing good.
So eventually you end up down here, and Mike transgresses into another occupation. How did that happen?
Well, we first moved, so I worked for MetLife Disability. I worked for them for 15 years, corporate. I worked for them in office for 4 years. When Mike finally succeeded in everything, we were able to move. We moved to Florida, Fort Pierce, Florida, when I was 7 weeks pregnant with Isabel.
Okay.
We were there for about a year. We moved back to New York. We got hit with our first hurricane ever. It was kind of like a scary thing. We were top tier of an apartment building. A tree came in. We didn't know what to do. We packed up our stuff. We were back in New York 3 days later.
Okay.
Then after that, we were there for about a year. I was still working for MetLife, but at that time, work from home was kind of becoming popular, and I was able to, again, move my work to Florida, and we moved to Orlando, right next to the airport, and I was working from home, had Isabel, and he was commuting from Orlando to New York City on a weekly basis. He was gone for weeks at a time.
Okay. What happened next in y'all's life?
There was a lot. We just had each other. I don't know how else to explain it. We just had each other. I was a single mom in a new place with no family, no friends. He was a pilot. He was gone all the time. There was no support from either family. So I packed Isabel up. She was just a little over 1 year old. We went there. And,
Where was Mike?
well, he was off on a business trip. But we had, back then, you used to have flying privileges. You could just, you were just on standby. As long as you could just get on the plane, you could fly anywhere you wanted to for free back then. So that's what I did. I got away. My sister was helping me. We got a house. We rented a house. Everything was all right, this is going to work. I was seeking an attorney in New York, filing for divorce. My mom, I joined a gym, and I went to a spinning class one day. I came home that night. My mom was watching Isabel, who was a baby. I went into the shower. When I came out, my mom was not there.
Okay.
I was greeted by a punch in the face.
Excuse me. Okay. Let's limit it
Okay.
without physical
Okay.
description.
I was greeted by Michael.
Okay.
3 weeks later,
All right.
I was out of work for 3 weeks.
Lori Lee Shaver was sentenced to life in prison in Michael's murder. It was a life sentence for 32-year-old Ali Abulyaban, too. He's the TikToker convicted of murdering his wife, 28-year-old Anna Abulyaban, and her friend. That's 29-year-old Rayburn Cardenas Barrett back in 2021. Anna's sister gave a heartbreaking victim impact statement at Ali's sentencing.
What my mom did to you? What I did to you? My mom did you what? Sorry, Your Honor. What did they do to you? You didn't do anything to you. You know Anna Marie is not gonna go cheat if you didn't cheat first.
All right. Ma'am, if you're not going to be able to control yourself,
Sorry, Your Honor.
I'm going to have to excuse you. Mr. Abul,
This feeling is like
please.
make me sick. Your Honor, my name is Hermes Harden. And I want to share the court the devastating impact that loss of my sister Anna Marie has had on our lives. My sister was a gentle, loving, sweet, young woman whose absence has left a hole in my heart that can never be filled. This man has taken her life and also shattered the hearts and lives of so many loved Anna Marie. Anna Marie was not only my sister, but also one of my best friends. Our childhood was filled with laughter, love, and countless moments of joy. My favorite memories with my sister were of us growing up together. Her beautiful smile and laughter always made us happy. As we grew up, I can remember so many fun times when our family would get together because her presence was, I can remember so fun times when our family would get together because our presence was always so uplifting. And Ali, if I had known what my sister had been through with all the abuse, if I had known, I would have flown again to see her and do my best to take her and Amira away from you. You didn't take away my sister's life, but also my niece's future because of your selfishness. The damage you have caused impossible to measure. And my parents trusted you when you brought Anna Marie and Amira from the Philippines to the States. You promised my mom that you would take good care of them, as my parents did for Anna Marie and Amira back in the Philippines. But I had no idea that my sister's life would be miserable living with you. Treated my sister like she didn't matter, but she mattered!
In New Jersey, testimony got extra emotional when Brianna Michelow took the stand in the treadmill dad case. That's Christopher Greger, who was charged in the death of his son, 6-year-old Corey Michelow. Jurors saw the harrowing security video showing Greger force the boy to run on the treadmill and deliberately increasing the speed. Jurors also heard from the little boy's mom, who gave heartbreaking testimony.
I don't believe a word he said, and I don't accept any apologies.
He has no remorse for any of the actions he committed. And his only remorse, like you saw today, was for himself because he got caught and convicted. Another reason I could think of is, everything he had done to Corey was done out of spite towards me. Another reason I could think of is he's sick in the head and used Corey as his punching bag. On April 2nd of 2021, it was not the first time that he abused Corey, but it was the last time. He never had an ounce of love for Corey. And to the defendant, Corey was just an inconvenience in his life. He never hugged him. He never praised him. He never told him he was proud of him or that he did a good job. He punished Corey every chance that he could get, and I cannot even begin to imagine what my son dealt with behind closed doors with this man. On April 2nd of 2021, I hesitantly dropped Corey off at the defendant's home, which is a mistake that will haunt me for the rest of my life. I kissed my son goodbye unknowingly for the last time. I wish I knew what was going to happen and I would never let him go. I hate you for not letting me say goodbye to my son, but I thank God your face is not the last one he saw. I'm sorry. What this monster did was pathetic, disgusting, and I wish him nothing but the worst. One could only hope that karma comes to him quickly. After all he's done, you would hope he'd admit what he's done, but no. Instead of grieving, I had to fight for justice for 3 long years. Go to trial just to relive everything. I had to see that video that I never wanted to see. I didn't have to see it until 2 weeks before this trial. I went 3 years without seeing it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Christopher Greger was ultimately found guilty of aggravated manslaughter and child endangerment. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. We heard from multiple defendants themselves this year, too, including former ballerina Ashley Benefield, charged in the murder of her husband, Doug.
You claim that you thought he was going to kill you.
He had never hit me before.
Okay. And you thought he was going to kill you.
He wouldn't let me leave. I tried to leave. He stopped me.
The question is, you thought he was going to kill you.
Yeah.
Okay. You claim that Doug does what?
He came and slammed the door open. He was standing in the doorway. He said, "You're fucking done."
He said, "You're fucking done." And that made you fear for your life.
Yeah.
Can we turn the lights up, please? Thank you. So he says you're fucking done, and you point the gun and you shoot.
I held it out in front of me first so he could see it. And I said, "Stop."
He's standing there. He turns to like this and starts moving his arms around. Well, show me. What was he doing?
Kind of like, I don't know, he got like this, and he was like making like fighting motions. I don't know, I'm not a fighter, I don't know.
Okay.
It was scary.
Did he have his hands in fists?
Not at that point, they were like, I don't know.
Was he coming at you like this?
And he lunged at me, he came really quickly.
Okay, so he lunged. Was his fist up when he lunged?
I don't remember.
Okay. So you start shooting, and he does what?
He kept coming at me.
Okay, so then you keep shooting again. And he falls down on his back?
His legs went up in the air.
Okay, where do his legs go?
In the air.
How high in the air?
I don't know.
Even though she claimed self-defense, she was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Robin Howington also testified in her own defense in the death of her 5-year-old daughter, Destiny Oliver, who was shot and killed while she was watching Netflix on the couch.
I was walking up to my house, and it's a glass door, and I seen a flash of light go off. And when I walked in, Gavin was screaming and crying, and the gun was on the ground.
There's some tissues up there in that box. And did you see where Destiny was at that point?
Yes, she was on the couch.
And was she moving at all?
No.
Did you try to speak with her at all?
Multiple times.
I'm sorry.
Multiple times.
And did she ever respond to you at that point?
No, sir.
Now, what was going through your mind at that moment?
I couldn't believe what was going on.
Do you know what time it was when you got to the hospital?
No, sir.
And did you see Destiny at the hospital?
No.
But at some time, a doctor came out and talked to you.
Yes.
And what did that doctor tell you?
That my daughter had passed away.
And you heard Officer Wardlaw today testify about your reaction.
Yes.
Was he accurate?
No.
What was your reaction when the doctor told you your daughter had died?
I kept on telling her there's no way that it could be true.
Did you believe at that point that it could be true?
No.
How would you describe your mental state in that moment?
I was in hell.
Howington was convicted of reckless homicide and aggravated child neglect and later sentenced to 22 years in prison. It was an even longer sentence for Wisconsin woman Jessie Krzyzewski, convicted in the death of her friend. Prosecutors say Krzyzewski stole more than $300,000 from her friend, 62-year-old Lynn Hernan, and later murdered her by putting eye drops in her vodka. Krzyzewski gave a 2-hour-long statement after all of this, maintaining her innocence.
The state has taken every single thing out of context and made it into something it wasn't. None of this matters or had anything to do with Lynn's death. Scott ended up in the ER months after Lynn died, and I was the one who fought to get him to the doctor, called around and get an appointment sooner. I was the one who took him. He ended up having emergency surgery. His sinuses were blocked, and he talked to his ex-wife while there and had a will done. He was afraid I'd be mad he listed his kids and not me. Never in a million years would I have cared or wanted different. I was close with both his exes and the kids' moms and his family. I was happy in life with him and those kids. I had a job I loved, I made good money, and had great hours. It breaks my heart I lied to him. I not only lost Lynn, but I lost him and the kids. Our friends, I've lost everything, including my life. There was no reason, no amount of money ever in the world that would make the state say, I don't care what the state says or try to say or prove. They are wrong. And then there's those I met here daily that are forever trying to get information, get close or turn against me. They think they know me. They whisper and talk about me. I trust so few and keep an even smaller circle. As I have said, I have nothing to hide, but me being all over the TV, I don't have to say a word. These people still try to make this up or that to help their own cases. I wouldn't wish this upon anyone. All I have been through upon anyone, including my worst enemy. I have spent months debating on what I was going to say here today, or if I was even going to talk. There has been so much I wanted to say. I hope I got it all out. I needed to say all this for Lynn, for my mom, and for I, as well as others struggling in the system or with it. I am not good at keeping my mouth shut. Usually I'm very outspoken about my frustrations and wrongs that have happened in all this. But in closing, I wanted to share why and how I am still functioning and standing after all this time. What helps me wake up and face a new day. I want people to know how my life has changed for the better and why.
That was a look at some of the most emotional courtroom moments from 2024. Lots more sure to come as we make our way into 2025. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Gillespie.